Here's today's First Word Daily Devotion.
Today is January the 4th, and our reading takes us Genesis 5 through 6, Matthew chapter 3, the first 12 verses, Psalm chapter 4, and then Proverbs 2, 1 through 15. And in this passage in particular, we see the results of sin, in particular the consequence of sin entering humanity. Look at the text here. In chapter 5 and verse 1 of Genesis, here we have the book of the generations of Adam when God created man. And then look at this phrase that's repeated. In verse 4, the days of Adam after he fathered Seth were 800 years, and he had other sons and daughters. And then here's the verse. Thus all the days that Adam lived were 930 years, and he died. Now remember, the wages of sin is death. God spelled out that consequence back in Genesis chapter 3. He reminded Adam that he was dust, and to dust he would return. And here in Genesis chapter 5, we don't need to move quickly past that phrase, and he died. Instead, we need to remember the consequence of sin. And look at it repeated. Seth, Adam's son, 912 years, and he died. Enosh, and he died. Kenan, and he died. Mahalalel, and he died. Jared, and he died. Then we see the pattern broken in verse 21. When Enoch lived 65 years, he fathered Methuselah. Now here's the pattern to break. Enoch walked with God, and after he fathered Methuselah 300 years, and he had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days of Enoch were 365 years. Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. Enoch breaks the pattern. He doesn't die. Instead, he walks with God, and God takes him. And then the pattern then is repeated with Methuselah, back to the pattern of death. Methuselah, the oldest man of the Bible, 969 years, but even those years, the epitaph of his life, and he died. Lamech, he died. Noah, then we're introduced to Noah. Noah is the one who's going to do what his name says, bring relief from the curse of the land. So already we're introduced to the curse of the land, and then Noah brings or rounds out that curse, reminding us that God's purpose is still true and that he's going to bring relief. Now let me just make a comment real quick about the Nephilim of Genesis chapter 6. We're going to see in particular verse 4. The question is whether or not these Nephilim are fallen angels or something else. I think that these individuals, it's not clear what they are. We're going to see them again in the book of Numbers. And more than likely, these are just agents of the seed of the serpent, agents of evil, men who are causing havoc on God's good creation. And then look here, verse 8. Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. Don't get the idea that everyone else was unrighteous and then there was Noah acting righteous. Noah found favor. In other words, God was gracious to Noah. He was a sinner like everyone else, but Noah found favor. Look at verse 9. These are the generations of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his generation. Noah walked with God. The same phrase that we see concerning Enoch. And then look at how all of this is woven together by the editors again in Matthew chapter 3. Here we have this reference of water and salvation, baptism, as we're introduced to John the Baptist. And then of course in Proverbs chapter 2, again reminding us that the way to avoid wickedness is to let, as verse 7 says, let God be the shield to those who walk in integrity, guarding the paths of justice, watching over the way of his saints. Then you will understand righteousness and justice, equity, every good path. For wisdom will come into your heart, knowledge will be pleasant to your soul, discretion will watch over you, understanding will guard you, delivering you from the way of evil, from men of perverted speech, who forsake the path of uprightness to walk in the ways of darkness, which is what they were doing in Noah's day. Those who rejoice in doing evil and delight in the perversion of evil, men whose paths are crooked and whose ways are devious. In other words, the way to avoid those things is exactly what Proverbs says. Receive my words, treasure up my commandments with you.